Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the ESS Hawking, Earth's most advanced deep space vessel, watching the unfamiliar star system spread out before her. The year was 2157, and humanity had spent the last decade recovering from the great collapse of 2145, when a cascade of climate disasters had nearly ended human civilization. They'd survived through unity and innovation, and now they were ready to reach for the stars again. "Admiral, we're picking up unusual readings from the third planet," Lieutenant Puddle reported, his fingers dancing across the holographic display. "It's artificial. Definitely artificial." Chen's heart raced, but her voice remained steady. "Show me." The main screen filled with data streams and spectral analyses. After centuries of searching, they'd finally found proof of alien civilization. But something was wrong. The star at the center of this system showed signs of instability that shouldn't be possible for another million years. "Ma'am," Puddle's voice cracked. "The star, it's going to go supernova. Not in a million years. Not in 1,000. In less than 8 months." The bridge fell silent. They'd found intelligent life, only to witness its extinction. "Get me a closer look at that planet," Chen ordered. The ship's quantum engines hummed as they moved into orbit around a world that gleamed like polished copper. The surface was covered in sprawling cities that seemed to grow organically from the metallic ground itself. But what caught Chen's attention were the massive ships, thousands of them, sitting incomplete in what appeared to be orbital shipyards. "They're trying to evacuate," Dr. Emily Santos, the ship's xenobiologist, whispered. "But something's wrong. Those ships, they're not finished. They won't be ready in time." Chen closed her eyes, remembering the billions who died during the Great Collapse. The way nations had finally put aside their differences to save what remained of humanity. They'd sworn never to let such a catastrophe happen again. "Open a channel," she commanded. "All frequencies." "But Admiral, the first contact protocols." "To hell with protocols. These people are dying." The communication officer worked his console, and Chen spoke the words that would change human history forever. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth ship Hawking. We see you. We know what's coming. And we're here to help." The response came in an alien language that the ship's AI struggled to translate, a cascade of musical tones that gradually resolved into words. "We are the Meridians. If you truly wish to help, we have 7 billion souls on this world, and less than 8 months to live." Chen's response was immediate. 7 billion. The same number we almost lost 12 years ago. The same number we swore to protect. She turned to her crew. "Contact Earth. Wake up every government official, every engineer, every scientist. Tell them it's time to repay our debt to the universe." As the message was sent, she looked back at the copper world below. Humanity had nearly destroyed itself through ignorance and greed. They'd learned their lesson the hard way. Now they had a chance to prove they'd grown beyond their past, by saving another civilization from extinction. The next few days were a blur of activity. The Meridians, despite their alien biology, silicon-based life forms that looked like living crystal sculptures, shared humanity's drive to survive. Their scientists and engineers worked tirelessly with the Hawking's crew, sharing data about their world, their biology, and the cruel astronomical accident that had destabilized their star. They had tried to build generation ships, massive vessels that could carry their entire civilization to safety. But they'd started too late. The star's deterioration had accelerated beyond their worst predictions, and now they faced extinction. What they hadn't counted on was human stubbornness. "It's impossible," the Meridian chief engineer, a crystalline being named Zar-Ith, chimed melodiously. "Even if we had the ships, we cannot survive long enough in space to reach another suitable world." "Then we don't look for a suitable world," Chen replied. "We make one suitable." She brought up a holographic image of Earth. 12 years ago, we transformed our planet's environment to survive our own catastrophe. We can do it again. For you. The Meridian's crystalline form flickered with what the translation AI identified as shock. You would share your world. We would share our knowledge, our resources, and yes, if necessary, our world. Chen answered, because 12 years ago, we learned the hard way that survival isn't about competition. It's about cooperation. As she spoke these words, the first responses from Earth began arriving. Emergency meetings were being called. Resources were being mobilized. Humanity remembered its own brush with extinction, and they were ready to act. The impossible race against time had begun. But this time, humanity wasn't fighting to save itself. They were fighting to save another civilization entirely, and in doing so, proved that they had learned from their own past mistakes. As Chen sent the first detailed reports back to Earth, she couldn't help but smile. Humanity had nearly destroyed itself through selfishness and short-sightedness. Now they had a chance to prove they'd grown beyond that by saving another civilization from extinction. The Meridians would survive, and the galaxy would never forget the day when humanity, barely recovered from its own near extinction, chose to save another species instead of letting them die. This was only the beginning. The next 6 months saw the greatest mobilization of human resources in history. The shipyards of Earth, Mars, and the asteroid belt worked at full capacity. Engineers who had developed environmental restoration technology during the Great Collapse now adapted their designs for silicon-based life. Every nation contributed what they could to what became known as Operation Second Chance. Dr. Marcus Wong stood in the central control room of the Singapore Mass Fabrication Center, watching as automated systems constructed pieces of what would become the largest fleet of ships humanity had ever built. The facilities had been crucial in rebuilding Earth after the Great Collapse. Now they served an even greater purpose. The latest simulations are in, his colleague, Dr. Amara Okafor, announced. She projected a hologram showing the modified colony ships. The Meridian biostasis systems are stable. We can safely transport up to 100,000 individuals per ship. Marcus nodded, but his expression remained troubled. That's still not enough. Even with every shipyard in the solar system working at maximum capacity, we can only build enough ships to save about 2 billion of them in time. Then we get creative. The voice came from behind them. Captain Miguel Ramirez, formerly of the Mexican Space Force, now coordinator of the emergency fleet, stepped into the room. The Meridians shared their quantum entanglement technology with us. We're installing it in cargo ships, cruise liners, anything that can hold atmosphere. If it can fly, we're adapting it for evacuation. The determination in his voice reflected the global mood. Humanity remembered its own near extinction all too well. They wouldn't let another species face the same fate. But not everyone supported the effort. Outside the fabrication center, protesters gathered daily. Earth for humans, they chanted. We barely survived ourselves. We can't support aliens too. Their concerns weren't entirely unfounded. Earth was still recovering from the Great Collapse. Resources were stretched thin. Yet for every protester, there were thousands of volunteers working tirelessly on the evacuation effort. In orbit around the Meridian homeworld, Admiral Chen coordinated with the alien leadership. The Meridian's crystalline bodies sparkled with colors that the translation AI now identified as hope, an emotion they hadn't displayed in years. The first wave of ships will arrive within 2 weeks, Chen informed Zarith. But we've run into a problem. Even with all our ships, we can't evacuate everyone. The Meridian leader's crystalline form dimmed. We anticipated this. Our council has already begun the selection process. No, Chen interrupted. We're not choosing who lives and who dies. We're finding another way. She brought up a holographic display of the solar system. We've been focusing on ships, but there's another option. Dr. Santos, the xenobiologist, stepped forward. We've been studying your biology, your environmental needs. What if we could create a temporary shelter, something that could protect your people until we can transport everyone? The display zoomed in on Mars. We've been terraforming Mars for decades. The infrastructure is already there. With your quantum technology and our environmental systems, we could adapt the existing domes to support your biology. It won't be comfortable, but it could house millions until we can complete the evacuation. Zareth's crystalline form pulsed with rapid colors. You would share another world. We would share whatever we have, Chen replied. Because that's what we learned from our own crisis. Survival isn't a zero-sum game. Either we all make it, or none of us deserve to. The plan was unprecedented. Converting Mars' terraforming facilities to support silicon-based life would set back human colonization efforts by decades. But when put to a vote, the people of Earth chose to help. They remembered their own darkest hours, when survival hung by a thread, and they voted to ensure no one else would face extinction alone. The operation became a testament to human ingenuity and determination. Ships were modified in record time. The Martian domes were converted. Transportation schedules were calculated and recalculated to maximize efficiency. But time was running out. The meridian sun grew more unstable with each passing day. Radiation levels rose. The surface temperature of their world began to climb. In orbit, the first wave of evacuation ships arrived. They weren't beautiful cargo haulers retrofitted with life support, cruise ships with their luxury quarters converted to stasis pods, even private yachts donated by wealthy individuals. But they were hope made manifest. The first evacuation was a triumph of coordination. 1 million meridians, their crystalline forms carefully secured in adapted stasis chambers, boarded the fleet. As the ships prepared to depart, Admiral Chen received a message from Earth that brought tears to her eyes. Cities across the planet were dimming their lights at night to remind themselves of the Great Collapse and to show solidarity with the Meridians. Humanity remembered its own brush with extinction, and they would not rest until every last Meridian was safe. As the first fleet jumped to quantum speed, carrying their precious cargo to safety, Chen looked at the dying star. They were in a race against time, but humanity was determined to win. They had to. Because this wasn't just about saving another species, it was about proving that they had learned from their own past, that they had grown beyond their former limitations. The Great Migration had begun, and with it, humanity's chance to demonstrate that they had become the kind of civilization they had always dreamed of being, one that reached out to others in their hour of need, no matter the cost. The first Meridian child born on Mars emerged from its crystalline gestation chamber exactly 6 months after the evacuation began. Its tiny form caught the light from the adapted environmental systems, sending rainbow refractions dancing across the walls of the converted dome. Dr. Emily Santos watched in wonder as the infant's crystal structure stabilized, its silicon-based biology adapting perfectly to the carefully maintained environment. Beautiful, isn't it? The melodic voice belonged to Curvan, the Meridian chief biologist. We feared our children would never see another sunrise. Now they will grow up under 2 suns. The birth represented more than just hope for the Meridians. It was proof that the impossible rescue operation was working. 3 billion Meridians now lived in the converted Martian domes, while another 2 billion had been transported to specially constructed habitats in Earth's asteroid belt. The remaining 2 billion were en route in the massive evacuation fleet, their crystalline forms preserved in stasis. But success brought its own challenges. In the New Delhi Command Center, Director Priya Patil faced a wall of holographic displays showing resource allocation data. "We're stretching our helium-3 reserves to the limit," she reported to the Global Emergency Council. "The Meridian habitats require more energy than we anticipated. The Americans are diverting additional fusion resources," Councillor Zhang replied from Beijing. "And the African Union has fast-tracked their solar satellite network. We'll make it work." They had to make it work. The alternative was unthinkable. But the strain on Earth's recovering ecosystem was beginning to show. Then something unexpected happened. In the Martian habitats, Curvan approached the human scientific team with a discovery. "We've been studying your environmental restoration technology," the Meridian scientists chimed. Our quantum crystalline technology could improve its efficiency by 300%. The Meridians, it turned out, weren't content to be passive refugees. Their advanced technology, developed over millennia, began to mesh with human innovation in ways no one had predicted. On Earth, protests against alien resource drain turned to amazement as Meridian-enhanced environmental systems began to restore damaged ecosystems at unprecedented rates. The Australian outback bloomed. The Sahara's edges grew green. Fish returned to once dead seas. But the greatest changes were cultural. In the orbit of Mars, 17-year-old Aisha Patel floated in zero gravity beside her Meridian friend, Lynn Saw. The young Meridian's crystalline form rippled with colors of excitement as they worked together on their quantum physics project. "I still don't understand," Lynn Saw chimed. "When your people were recovering from your own disaster, why did you choose to help us? The resources you spent on our rescue could have restored Earth completely." Aisha thought about the history lessons she'd grown up with, about the billions who died in the Great Collapse, because nations had chosen competition over cooperation. Because we learned the hard way that survival isn't about being the strongest or having the most resources. It's about helping each other, about becoming better than we were. In the converted asteroid habitats, human engineers worked alongside Meridian craftsmen, learning how to grow structures from living crystal. In Earth's universities, Meridian scientists taught quantum theories that revolutionized human understanding of physics. Artists from both species collaborated to create works that captured light in ways never before seen. But not all changes were easy. Religious leaders grappled with the theological implications of silicon-based life. Economic systems strained under the pressure of supporting two civilizations. Cultural misunderstandings led to conflicts that required new forms of resolution. Yet for every challenge, there seemed to be an unexpected breakthrough. The Meridian's quantum crystalline technology revolutionized computer science. Their understanding of silicon-based biology opened new frontiers in medical research. Their architectural techniques made possible structures that could weather any storm. In return, human adaptability and innovation helped the Meridians evolve their own technology in ways they had never considered. The fusion of both species' knowledge created solutions neither could have developed alone. Admiral Chen, now serving as Earth's primary liaison with the Meridian leadership, stood in the observation dome of the Martian colony. Below her, crystal spires grew alongside human habitats, a physical representation of the two species learning to coexist. "We received the final readings today," Zar-Ith announced, joining her at the viewport. "Our sun has gone supernova. Our homeworld is gone." Chen turned to her friend, and she realized she did think of the crystalline being as a friend now. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be." Zar-Ith's form shimmered with colors that the translation AI now recognized as profound emotion. "In losing our world, we found something greater. We found that we are not alone in this universe. That there are others who will reach out, even at great cost to themselves, to help strangers in need." Beyond the dome, the Martian sunset painted the sky in shades of red and gold. Crystal structures refracted the light, creating an aurora of color that had never been seen on Mars before. It was neither purely human nor purely Meridian. It was something new, born from the collaboration of two species who had chosen to face the future together. As night fell on Mars, lights began to glow in both human and Meridian habitats. In universities and laboratories, researchers from both species worked side by side. In homes and community centers, children of silicon and carbon learned each other's stories and dreamed of possibilities their parents had never imagined. The Great Evacuation was nearly complete, but its true impact was just beginning to be felt. Humanity had changed the fate of an entire species, and in doing so, had changed itself. They had proved that the lessons learned from their own near extinction weren't just words. They were a blueprint for a better way of existing in the cosmos. The signal arrived 3 years after the completion of the Meridian evacuation. The ESS Hawking, now commanded by Captain Julia Martinez, was conducting a routine patrol of the Kuiper Belt when their quantum sensors detected something unusual, a controlled gravitational wave, far too precise to be natural. Multiple contacts, Lieutenant Park announced, his fingers dancing across the holographic controls. Dropping out of FTL at the edge of the solar system. Configuration unknown. Size, massive. Martinez straightened in her command chair. First contact protocols had been extensively revised since the Meridian rescue, but this was different. These ships were clearly more advanced than anything humanity had encountered. Message incoming, communications reported. It's being transmitted in 17 different languages, including Meridian quantum harmonics. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a being that seemed to be made of living light. When it spoke, its words were translated simultaneously into both human languages and Meridian crystalline harmonics. "We are the conclave of sentient species," the being announced. "We have come to meet the civilization that chose to save rather than conquer. The civilization that spent its resources on strangers rather than itself. The civilization that has, perhaps, finally shown us a better way." In the years since the evacuation, humanity had focused inward, working with the Meridians to rebuild and advance. They had no idea they were being watched. The Conclave, it turned out, was an alliance of over 30 spacefaring civilizations. They had detected the Meridian's dying sun and had been preparing to document the extinction of another species, a tragic but common occurrence in the harsh reality of space. Instead, they witnessed something unprecedented. A young civilization, barely recovered from its own catastrophe, mounting an impossible rescue mission for a species they had just met. "We have been watching," the luminous being continued, "as you integrated the Meridians into your society, as you shared your worlds, your resources, your knowledge, as you chose cooperation over conquest, adaptation over assertion, hope over fear." In the Mars Command Center, Admiral Chen stood beside Czar Ith as they received the transmission. "You knew about them?" she asked her friend. The Meridian's crystalline form rippled with what Chen now recognized as embarrassment. "We knew of their existence, yes, but the Conclave has strict non-intervention policies. They observe, they document, but they do not interfere. Until now." The luminous being's next words confirmed this. "For 10,000 years, we have debated the nature of true civilization. When is a species ready to join the galactic community? What proves their worth? We had our tests, our criteria, our careful observations. But you, humans, have shown us that perhaps we were asking the wrong questions. Across Earth, Mars, and the asteroid habitats, humans and Meridians gathered around communication screens. The implications were staggering. They weren't alone in the galaxy. They never had been. Your civilization faced extinction," the Conclave representative continued. "You survived through unity and innovation. But instead of turning inward, hoarding your resources and knowledge, you reached out to save another species facing the same fate. This is not the act of a primitive civilization clawing its way to the stars. This is the act of a species that understands the true meaning of advancement." In universities and research centers, scientists of both species began analyzing the data streaming in from the Conclave ships. Their technology was centuries, perhaps millennia ahead of anything humanity or the Meridians had developed. The potential for advancement was astronomical. But it was the Conclave's next announcement that truly changed everything. "We have come not just to make contact, but to offer membership to both humanity and the Meridians in the Conclave of sentient species, together, not separately. Because what you have created here, this fusion of two different forms of life working together, learning from each other, growing together, this is what we have sought for millennia." The offer came with access to technology, knowledge, and resources beyond imagination. But it also came with responsibility. The Conclave wanted humanity and the Meridians to help them revise their understanding of civilization itself. "You have shown us, The luminous being concluded that true advancement lies not in the height of our towers or the power of our ships, but in the strength of our compassion and the depth of our cooperation. As the transmission ended, Admiral Chen turned to Zareth. The Meridian's crystalline form was pulsing with colors she had never seen before. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," Zareth chimed, "we show them what humanity and Meridians can accomplish together. We show them why your species chose to save mine. We show them that the future belongs not to those who stand alone, but to those who stand together." The galaxy was watching, and humanity, along with their Meridian allies, was ready to show them a new way forward, one built not on competition and conquest, but on cooperation and compassion. The impossible rescue of the Meridian species had not just saved a civilization, it had changed the course of galactic history. And this was only the beginning. 50 years after the Great Migration, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, the massive joint human-Meridian construction that served as their shared embassy to the Conclave. Her hair had turned white, but her eyes remained sharp as she watched ships from dozens of civilizations dock at the crystalline metal hybrid structure. Below her, Earth had been transformed. The Meridian's crystal technology, combined with human innovation and conclave knowledge, had turned the once ravaged planet into a garden world again. The great deserts bloomed, the oceans teemed with life, and the air was cleaner than it had been in centuries. "Admiring the view, old friend." The melodic voice belonged to Zareth, whose crystalline form had grown more intricate with age, each facet holding memories of their shared history. "Remembering," Chen replied. "Did we ever imagine, that day when we first detected your dying sun, that we'd end up here?" The question was more than rhetorical. The decision to save the Meridians had cascaded through history in ways no one could have predicted. The fusion of human and Meridian technologies had revolutionized space travel. Their combined understanding of carbon and silicon-based life had led to medical breakthroughs that benefited dozens of species. The Martian colonies had become a symbol of successful cooperation throughout the galaxy, studied by xenosociologists from 100 worlds. But the greatest changes were philosophical. In the great universities of Earth and the crystal academies of Mars, students from across the galaxy came to study what had become known as the solar system model, the idea that different species could do more than merely coexist. They could actively support each other's growth, combining their strengths to overcome their individual weaknesses. Ambassador Chen, a young aide, interrupted her thoughts. "The ceremony is about to begin." Chen smiled. Even after retiring from the fleet, she'd never quite gotten used to her diplomatic title. But today's ceremony was special. The inauguration of the first joint human-Meridian expedition beyond known space, not as refugees or rescuers this time, but as explorers. The great assembly hall of Harmony Station was filled with representatives from across the conclave. Humans and Meridians sat together with beings of plasma and energy, crystalline entities different from but related to the Meridians, and species that defied easy description. The expedition's commanders, Helena Rodriguez, great-granddaughter of the captain who'd helped coordinate the Great Migration, and Selven, a young Meridian born on Mars, stood proud before the assembly. 50 years ago, Chen began her address. Humanity made a choice. We chose to reach out instead of turning inward. We chose to help instead of hide. We chose to grow instead of merely survive. She paused, looking out at the assembled beings. We didn't know it then, but we were choosing the future of not just two species, but of galactic civilization itself. The evidence was all around them. The conclave had changed in the decades since first contact. Where once they had been observers, documenting the rise and fall of civilizations, they now actively sought out young species to mentor. The philosophy of non-intervention had been replaced by one of careful, constructive engagement. The Great Migration taught us all something crucial. Zareth chimed in, his harmonics resonating through the hall. That civilization isn't measured by the height of our towers or the reach of our ships, but by our willingness to help others, even at great cost to ourselves. The ceremony continued as the expedition leaders outlined their mission. They would venture beyond known space, seeking other civilizations that might need help, other species that might enrich the growing tapestry of galactic society. But it was what happened after the ceremony that truly captured the legacy of that long-ago decision. In the station's botanical gardens, designed to accommodate species from across the galaxy, Chen found a young human girl sitting with a Meridian child, their very existence a testament to how far both species had come. The human was teaching the Meridian a game, while the Meridian showed her friend how to create simple crystal structures with their combined abilities. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Chen overheard the human girl ask. The Meridian child's response came in perfect English, their crystalline form sparkling with excitement. "I want to be like the first rescuers. I want to help people who need it." The human girl nodded solemnly. "Me too. My grandmother says that's what made humans special. We learned to help others even when it was hard." Chen felt tears in her eyes as she walked away. This was the true legacy of that desperate decision made half a century ago. Not the technological advances, not the political alliances, not even the transformation of their worlds. It was this, a new generation that saw cooperation and compassion not as exceptional choices, but as the natural way of being. In her quarters that night, Chen looked out at the star-filled sky. Somewhere out there, the Meridian's original sun had long since gone nova, its light still traveling through space. But its people lived on, not just survived but thrived, having enriched humanity just as humanity had saved them. As she watched ships from across the galaxy dock at the station, each one carrying beings who had come to learn from the solar system model, Chen finally understood the full impact of humanity's choice. They hadn't just saved one species, they had shown the galaxy a better way forward, a way based not on competition and survival of the fittest, but on cooperation and mutual growth. The debt humanity had repaid wasn't just to the universe. It was to themselves, to the better angels of their nature, to the dream of what they could become. And in repaying it, they had helped create a future brighter than any they could have imagined alone. As the lights of 1,000 ships twinkled in the darkness, Chen smiled. The story wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning. But now, at least, they were all writing it together.